All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got any questions, go ahead and post them. It's going to be below the video if you are on a smaller screen like a mobile device. If you're on a larger screen like a desktop computer, it's going to be to the right of the video. I start with questions that were asked up to an hour before. I'm going to be starting here with Steve A. So if you asked a question more than an hour ago, no worries. Just go ahead and copy and paste your question in there, and then we'll answer it later on in the office hours. The reason why I do that is I want to answer questions for people who I think are here waiting to see their question get answered. So let's go ahead and get started here. So Steve A says, in putting, if you are right-handed and left eye dominant, can this cause issue? And if so, how can I resolve? The main thing I would just say is just have both of your eyes behind the ball. Because if you're left eye dominant, you're kind of seeing the line more with your lead eye. And it can kind of throw you off a little bit if you're looking back at the ball this way and then out that way, right? It can kind of make things look a little bit off. So I would just have, if I have the ball right here, right, I just have my left eye. If I were to drop something from my left eye, it would land on the ball or behind the ball. I wouldn't want it to land on the target side of the ball because, like I said, that can kind of skew my vision a little bit. Not to say that you can't putt well, right? It maybe just be something that you need to, get used to seeing the line in a certain way, right? But I think it's easier to see the line if both your eyes are behind the ball. Even if you're right eye dominant, it's easier to see the line if both of your eyes are kind of behind the ball and you're kind of looking at the ball and out that way instead of having to look back at the ball and then that way. Makes it easier to see the line. But that would be about the only thing as far as eye dominance is concerned. So Tim F says, the G122, one move to start compressing your irons like a Tour Pro, appears to be pretty similar to the impact snap move. Agreed. Yes. So for those of you who aren't familiar, impact snap is this training aid right here. This is one of my favorite training aids. If you're struggling with forward shaft lean, basically if you're struggling with shaft lean, I think this is a great training aid because if you're someone who releases the club early, you have certain wrist angles at impact that allow you to square up the face. But if you use those same wrist angles when you get shaft lean, it's just going to open up the face. So what this training aid does, it teaches you the proper wrist angles to have with shaft lean. So as you can see here, it's just basically a shaft here with a grip, or like a partial shaft here with a grip. It's got this arm coming out of it with a ball on it. So if you grip this, what you want is when you come through contact, you want this ball to be contacting your trail forearm. And you can see what that does with my wrist. If it's not contact, when I come in and I flip like this, see where that ball is? It's nowhere near my forearm. It's not touching my forearm. But that's what I'd have to do to square up the face, right? If I flipped and I had this ball touching my forearm, right, well, my face would be very close. It would be pointing way over there. So I have to get the shaft leaning forward to square that up. So that's what this does. Is it helps you get the feeling of having that face square with shaft lean as you're coming through. And the drill that he's talking about, I believe it's the video that was released Monday. Video that I released on the website Monday. I'm talking about one feeling to kind of help you get that, because that's what we're doing there. The thing that I added to it, because just the feeling of this isn't necessarily going to get you shaft lean. Because if let's say I stand up tall and I go like this. Well, now if I make those same motions and I put the club in my hand, right, I'm 6 inches above the ground. So the drill that I'm talking about, or the drill that I like, for a lot of people who may be struggling, maybe they're getting lots of lag, but they're not getting that feeling impact. It's getting the hands really low. So that's helping you to kind of get down with the legs, getting those hands low and feeling like the base of your wrist here, or kind of like where my watch face is touching a wall first, right? So that's touching a wall before everything. And that's basically what you're doing with the impact snap, right? You're coming in with the impact snap and you're getting the hands in front. And that's in squaring up the face. And that's what this does. If I had my hands in front, but I didn't have the face square, my knuckles would hit. If I get the face square, like that, now that my watch is hitting first, right? And my hands and everything's coming in first. So I think it's a good feeling to help you get shaft lean. So yes, it is pretty much what you're doing with the impact snap. And you can even combine that with the impact snap, doing that with the impact snap drill. If you're interested in getting an impact snap, we do have an affiliate program with them with a promo code where it's basically a win-win-win for everybody. You get a discount on an impact snap. Impact Snap sells an impact snap, and they give us a little bit of a kickback. But like I said, we do get a little bit of a kickback from them whenever you use the promo code. It's promo code CBallard is what it is. You just go to impactsnap.com, use promo code CBallard, and you can get 10% off maybe. I can't remember what it is off of the impact snap. Like I said, full disclosure, we do get a little bit of a kickback from them, but in all honesty, we could sell every training aid there is, right? You probably noticed that we don't peddle a lot of training aids. Impact Snap, PRGR, Divot Board. There's only a handful of things that we recommend, and that's just because those are the things that we really think will help you. There's a lot of training aids out there. Odds are, if there's a training aid out there and you don't see us saying, "Hey, this is great," we either haven't tried it or we tried it and we don't like it, right? Or we just don't think it's that great for anybody. So, Clay's got a garage that's full of training aids that we would never recommend to anybody. And we usually recommend training aids that are going to help everybody. Not to say that there aren't training aids that Clay has in his garage that wouldn't benefit a group of people that be suffering from a specific issue, because that's what a lot of training aids are, is they tackle a specific issue and not something that everyone would, like a PRGR is everybody, a divot board is everybody. Impact Snap, I would say, is most people for the most part. At least 80% of golfers would benefit from an impact snap. So those are the kind of stuff that we're recommending. So anyway, Steve A says, since becoming a member of Tuscany Golf site, I have very much improved my ball striking. I now hit at least 15 greens around. Usually, dang, that is, if you're hitting 15 greens around, that's like elite right there for sure. That's awesome. My bugaboo or limitation or area that needs improvement is putting. Are you guys planning a putting masterclass? If so, would be interested. We don't have any sort of masterclass or additional course in the works or anything like that for putting. But we do have a Tuscany Golf putting system with a series of drills for putting, and that's what I'd recommend you go work on. Our putting master, I think it's just called Tuscany Golf putting system. So not sure if you're aware of the putting system, but yeah, we have that on the website. It's included with your membership, so it's not an additional course like the ball striking masterclass is. It's included with your membership. So if you want to go check it out, click the house icon at the top of the page there. You'll see a list of all the courses, and then if you scroll down on that list, you'll see the Tuscany Golf putting system. We also have a vault with lots of basically just a bunch of short game drills. There's going to be some putting videos in there as well. If you have a specific question about putting, I'll be happy to help you. But if you want to check out where we have a bunch of drills and stuff like that for putting and other areas of the short game, click the instruction tab at the top, then click the vault categories, and then the short game, I believe it's just called short game vault. Lots of videos in there to help with that. All right. So Maurice B says, how to stop pulling wedges. Well, when you pull a wedge, it's because your path is over the top, right? So you're swinging over the top, and then your face is in line with that path, right? So if you think about it this way, if I'm standing at home plate and my feet are lined up with second base or the pitcher, right? You're swinging toward third base, and the club face is also pointed toward third base. So what I'd recommend doing is swing toward first base, right? Swing toward first base with the face pointed in the direction of first base, and that will likely get you pointing more toward the pitcher, toward second base, right? So the fault is over the top, right? Steep over the top. The feel is a lot from the inside, swing way out to the right, and then hopefully the reality is more on plane, straighter shots. So that's what I'd recommend doing. One thing you can do is set up an obstacle or something. You can put an alignment stick and kind of put it in the ground at an angle to force you to swing underneath it to make sure that you're swinging more out to the right. Things like that. A lot of times, if you just feel swinging out to the right, assuming you're right-handed, that will help you with get rid of those pulls. So Alias says, please explain right-hand golfer the sequence, rhythm, and tempo of downswing steps, tucking of right elbow into the body, how to have forearm facing the sky per video from Clay, hip rotation, bowing of the left wrist, right foot feel movement towards the heel of the foot. So that's all in the move course. Other than the rhythm and tempo thing, that's a personal thing. Everyone's going to have their own different rhythm and tempo. Excuse me. Hey, yeah, drink. Everybody's going to have their own different rhythm and tempo. John Rahm has a different rhythm and tempo than Justin Thomas, and Justin Thomas has a different tempo than Jordan Spieth. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. So that's really personal. You have to find your own. The best way to kind of figure that out, a drill that I like to do, or what I would prescribe students to do, is really just kind of a slow motion drill. Take full swings and take as slow a swing as you possibly can. Like literally, if you're hitting a 7-iron, you normally hit your 7-iron 150 yards. Try to hit your 7-iron 50 yards with the full swing. Go really, really slow. And then just add a little bit more, add 25 yards, go a little bit faster to hit 25 yards, and just keep scaling that up. And somewhere until you're going basically swing as fast and with as fast a tempo and rhythm as you possibly can. And somewhere within there, you're going to find where you were best. And that's your rhythm and tempo, right? So go to both ends of the extreme. Swing as slow as you possibly can to swinging as fast as you possibly can. Somewhere in between there is going to be your personal rhythm and tempo. Hit a few shots from every place, and you're going to find where you're going to get the best results. So that's how you do that. As far as shallowing the club and bowing the wrist and things like that, I'd recommend working through the move course. That's what the move course is all about. So it's all explained in there. So click the instruction tab, then click the Top Speed Golf System, then click the move. Work through those drills to get those working correctly. You can't do them all. If you're not doing all of them right now, you can't do them all at the same time. Work on one at a time, and then get as you get better with one. So that's the issue with a lot of people have with golf, or why I see people not make a lot of progress, is that they try to get everything at the same time. And I understand we want everything now, right? But it doesn't work that way. If you're trying to improve something, you have to chip away at it, right? It's like in a basketball game, you're down 30 points. There's no 30-point shot, right? You have to get, score a basket, get a stop, score a basket, get a stop, score a basket, get a stop. You keep doing that, you're going to keep chipping away, and you're going to end up taking the lead at some point if you don't run out of time, right? So it's the same thing in golf. You got to keep chipping away at your issues. There's not one thing that's going to fix every single one of your issues. There's no 30-point shot, right? So that's what you got to do. If you're going to get back to where, or if you're going to improve, if you're going to win the game of golf, you got to keep chipping away at it. There's no one size fits all. You got to look at it this way. If you were someone who is a weightlifter, I use this a lot with students to help them kind of understand how you go about things. Because I think I'm guilty of this myself. I have the mind, I want it now. I want to be able to do it now. It's frustrating that you can't do it now. And I understand that, but it just doesn't work that way. If you think about it, anything you've ever learned a skill of, you don't go from being not having the skill to having the skill like that, right? It doesn't work that way. You have to build the skill. And that comes through time, repetition, chipping away at it, getting better, 1% better every day. That's kind of the goal. So like I said, this analogy that I use oftentimes with students is if you imagine you're a weightlifter, right, and you're trying to lift 300 pounds, but currently, right now, the most you can lift is 200 pounds. Well, how would that lifter get to where someday they can lift 300 pounds? Well, what they wouldn't do is try to lift 300 pounds every day, because if they did that, they probably wouldn't get anywhere, right? They might get a little bit stronger just by all the energy they would put in, but they can't move the weight. So they're not really going to get that much stronger if they just try to move 300 pounds, because they're not going to move it no matter how much they try. It's not like someday, it's going to happen, they're going to move it. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen if you do it that way. What you have to do is you have to get stronger with what you're capable of doing, right? So if you can only lift 200 pounds, get stronger with 200 pounds and then add some more weight. Then get stronger with that weight, then add some more weight. And then eventually you keep doing that, keep chipping away at it, you're going to get to where you can lift 300 pounds. But it's going to take time, repetition, hard work. That's what you have to do. So I can tell kind of by your question, you asked, how do you do like 6 different things? You're not going to do, if you're not doing those 6 things in the swing right now, there's not one thing I'm going to tell you that's going to make you do those 6 things right now. It's not going to happen, right? You have to train them individually, get them to where they and then once you get good with one, then you add another one. Once you get good with those 2, then you add another one. That's how the top speed golf system is set up. It's not set up to where you're going to do the stable fluid spine, one drill there, then one drill over here. That you're going to spin your wheels. You're not going to get anywhere if you do that. You have to go through level 1. You need to go through an entire level of a piece at least, and then move on to a different level, right? If you have a lot of time of practice, you could be working on 2 levels separately, but at the same time, right? So you could work on stable fluid spine level 1 for an hour a day, and then work on power turn for an hour a day, level 1 of that. You could do that if you have a lot of time to practice. If you have 2-3 hours of practice every single day, you could do that. But even then, you'd probably still be better off putting that time and really focusing on stable fluid spine, getting to where that's good to go, and then moving on to something else. So Ali S says, any comments on golf training aid G-force or lag shot? I have taken some swings with lag shot. I can't say, I don't think it's like a game changer or anything like that, just in my experience. Here's what I think it can be good for. I think it could be good to kind of help smooth you out a little bit. So if you're someone who's swinging, it really helps you to feel if you're very much out of sequence. So if you're getting quick at the top, casting the club at the top from the very beginning, it can help with that, I think. But if it's not something like that, if you're someone who's sequencing right, but then you're just throwing the club, I don't think it's really going to help with that. It can also help with getting the feeling of the club being a little bit more behind your hands. So help with the feeling of the club lagging behind you because it has a flexible shaft. But like I said, I haven't worked with it enough to really form much of an opinion, but I can see how it can help a little bit. But I don't think it's not one of those, obviously, we haven't recommended it because we haven't really, we have one of both of those. I will say that the lag shot seems like a better quality product, even though it's basically the same thing as the G-Force. It seems like it's a better quality product. So if I were to get one of those, if I was in the market for a flexible shaft club, it would be the lag shot. But I don't know. It's not a training aid that I would be like, oh, this is going to completely change everything for you, right? It's not something like that. I can see how it can have some benefit, but it's not like, what I'm not a fan of is that you watch the infomercial for it and it makes it seem like you just take a couple swings with it and all of a sudden you got lag and shaft. That's not going to happen. So I would not expect that to happen. I would say whatever's happening on their infomercial or whatever it is it's either baloney or it's placebo effect or something. It's not like a couple swings you're going to have lag. And even, if you look at the video, the guy, he's like this in one swing. Then the other swing, he's got the lag shot, but the club's back here. But his hands and everything are doing the same thing. It's just that the club is flexed, so it looks like he has a ton of lag. But the reality is, if you look at his hands, the lower part of the shaft is in the same place. So when he grabs that club, he's just going to be doing the same thing. So I don't know. I can't say that I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on the lag shot. I could see how it can help smooth you out a little bit, but I'm not saying it's going to be something that's going to change things for you. If you want my opinion, I would just work hard, save your money and work hard on the top speed lag course and actually do things with the club and things like that. So Paulie says, when I get to the top of my backswing, do I begin to turn my hips at that point? I have problems with starting that move. Yes, it starts from the ground up, your downswing, right? So you want to be getting pressure into that lead foot, and then the pressure in that lead foot's going to get the hips turning, get the chest turning, get the arms coming down, get the club coming down. Yes, so you want to start with the hips. It starts with pressure in the lead foot, right? And that starts getting the hips turning. So yes, that is what's going on. If you want a good drill to kind of help you feel getting pressure in that lead foot, I'd recommend the step drill. I think that's a great drill to help you with that. We actually have a video that's called How to Start the Downswing. I believe that's what it's called, where Clay goes over the step drill in that video. So if you want to check that out, I just search the words downswing on the website in the upper right-hand corner. If you're on the website, you can see where it says downswing. Select that, and then it might be on the second page. I believe it's BR014 is the video that I'm thinking of. Let me double check. You can just search for the code as well. I've recommended this video many times in the past. I haven't recommended it for a while, so I used to get that question a lot. So I kind of memorized this video with a drill. Yeah, so it's BR014. So Bob Ryan 014. How to start the golf downswing correctly. Work on the step drill in there. That can help you get the feeling of pressure in the lead foot, pushing, starting the downswing and things like that. That's what I'd recommend doing. So again, upper right-hand corner is the search box. If you're on a mobile device, if you click the icon in the upper right-hand corner, it's like 3 horizontal lines. That will expand a menu. And then if you scroll down the bottom of that menu, you'll find the search box. You can search BR014 there as well. All right, so Mitch D says, hi, was just looking at compressing ball in the move section and had a question with creating so much forward shaft lean. What if you need to hit higher shot onto the green? Do you just decrease the amount of forward shaft lean, or is it ball positioning issue? It could be a little bit of both. So, if I was trying to hit a real high shot, I would move the ball, maybe a ball forward in the stance. And then I would stand a little bit taller and feel like I released the club a little bit more, right, to get the ball to go higher. That's mainly what I would recommend doing. More loft. Basically, to get the ball to go higher, you want more loft, right? When you release the club more, you're going to get more loft. When you put the ball more forward in your stance, you're going to get more loft. The key is you don't want to put it so far forward in your stance that you'll tend to hit it thin, right? Because then that will actually make the ball go lower. If you hit the ball lower on the face, the ball will, if you've ever knifed a wedge, like hit a wedge with the leading edge of the club, you notice how it doesn't go very high. It goes low and way over the green usually, right? So that's what you don't want to do. So you don't want to put it too far up in the stance. So generally, I play the ball with pretty much all the clubs off the ground. I'll play the ball slightly forward in the middle of my stance. So straight down from the lead ear. If I hang the club from my earlobe, drop it straight down, that's basically where my ball position is, right? If I were to try to hit a high one, I would just move the ball about a ball forward of that, right? That's gonna allow me to kind of release the club a little bit more. And then I would just stand a little bit taller, and then I would just stay tall through impact. I wouldn't go down, right? I would just stay tall. That would be like if I was trying to hit it as high as possible and as solid as possible. If I was just trying to hit it a little bit higher, I would maybe just put the ball a little bit forward in my stance, and then I would kind of do the same thing, and then allow the club to, and you'll feel like I'm getting that same amount of shaft length, but because the ball is further up in my stance, it's going to release a little bit more. Or, or I might just stand, take my normal stance and then just stand a little bit taller. But either one of those is going to help you to get the ball to go a little bit higher. So Mark N says, what is causing pull and block shots even when doing the move? So we talked earlier about what causes a pull. The same thing causes a block shot. So if we go to the baseball field again, we're standing at home plate. If you hit a block, that face is, or the path of the club is going too much out toward first base, and the club face is toward first base. If I'm hitting a pull, my path is going left, right, out to in, and my face is also in that direction. So it's toward third base. Everything's toward third base. Right? So that's what's causing those. Right? As far as this pertaining to the move, I would look on video and see what's going on there, because I'll tell you all the time when I get people send me videos, they say that they're working on the move or they did the move. They feel like they're doing the move. Very rarely are they actually doing the move. So you got to look on video and make sure that you're actually doing the move, and then go from there. But you're likely going to see that you're probably coming down steep. A lot of times when people get that double miss, it's because they're coming down steep initially, and either they continue to come down steep and they hit the pull, or they back up out of it, they get the club to drop on underneath, and then they get that path too much from the inside, and that's where the block comes from. So that's the opposite of what the move is. The move is getting the club shallow right away, then you turn through the ball. So Craig D says, how do you stop coming on inside in backswing? Well, first of all, what I would make sure is that that's an actual root. It's a root issue. It's the root of an issue that you're having with your ball flight. I have a lot of people come to me and say they're working on getting rid of their inside takeaway, and there's really no reason for them to do that. So here would be a scenario where, and I'm not saying this is your scenario, but this is just a common scenario where an inside takeaway could be a bad thing. If you're taking the club, and for those of you who aren't familiar with what inside takeaway is, it just means that you bring the club too much inside, too much this way. So too much on this side of your hands when you're bringing the club back. Well, why would that ever be an issue? The most common thing is that when you bring the club way inside, a lot of times the momentum of the club will kind of be going out that way at the top of the swing, and you'll tend to come over the top. So I would only try to stop coming from the inside in the backswing if it is the root issue, the root of the issue of coming over the top. If it's not, if you're swinging the club from the inside and then swinging the club on the inside on the downswing and on plane, then it's fine. I wouldn't mess with it, right? Unless, now it depends on what your goal is, right? So if your goal is to play better golf, don't mess with it. Work on something that's going to actually improve your game. If your goal is to make your swing look aesthetically better, in my opinion, I like the look of a swing that's more on plane or a little bit outside the hands, like a Tiger Woods or a McIlroy or Adam Scott. I prefer that kind of look. I think it looks better, right? But there are lots of great players that brought the club inside. Raymond Floyd, Sam Snead. There's a lot of JB Holmes is another good player that brought the club inside. There's just a lot of Calvin Peete is the one who was on the tip of my tongue. One of the best ball strikers of all time. Many consider him to be the best ball striker. He was the straightest player ever from my understanding. So, you look at those players. I mean, they're just fine, right? They brought the club inside on the backswing, and then they swung on plane in the downswing. So I would only change it if it's causing you to come over the top. Now, if that is the case, then you're basically going like this. So you need to feel more like this, right? More outside the hands than inside the hands. So what I'd recommend doing is setting up an obstacle that's down your toe line. What I like to do is take like an alignment stick and a pool noodle, right? And I'd put the pool noodle to where it's in my way, to where I have to swing over it in the backswing, then under it in the downswing. And I would just go really slow with it at first. I'd go really slow. I'd go nice and slow, bringing it outside, and then I'd bring it inside, right? And I'd go really slow with it, then build up the speed, build up the speed, build up the speed. And then once you're able to do it at full speed without the ball, at that point, I would add the golf ball. Now I'd go slow again. Right? I'd go nice and slow with the ball. And I'd try to hit little draws. Get the ball start to the right and curve to the left, right? And once I start getting a few of those in a row, then I'll start building up the speed, building up the speed, building up the speed. So that's what I would recommend doing. But I would only mess with that backswing if and only if it is the root of the problem of coming over the top. That's typically what's going on there. Unless, of course, your goal is to just have a more aesthetically pleasing swing, and you're not really concerned with if you shoot lower scores or not because of it. So Brian B says, do you feel like you take the club to a different position at the top of the backswing before you hit a fade, straight, or draw? Or is it the same position, just swinging down along a different path? Thanks. Personally, I don't, but everyone's feel is different. You know, feel is relative. So what you feel in your swing and what I feel in my swing may be completely different things. I don't really change unless I'm going for an extreme curvature on a shot. If I'm just trying to hit a baby, let's say I'm trying to hit a little draw. That's not a good example because my natural ball flight is kind of a draw. But let's say I'm trying to draw it a little bit more, right? So if I'm trying to draw it a little bit more, I'm going to close my stance a little bit more. I'm going to strengthen my grip a little bit more. And I'm just going to try and get my face a little bit more closed as I come into contact. I'm swinging on the same plane I always do. I'm not changing the plane relative to my body. So it doesn't feel any different to me other than I'm trying to get the face more closed as I'm coming into contact. So I'm doing it more with the face, controlling the face with my hands and things like that. But I'm changing my stance to change the path relative to the target, right? So if I was to hit a fade, I would take the same swing. I'm just having the face more open. And usually when I try to hit a fade, I just try to get my hands more in front because that opens the face. When you have the hands more in front at impact, that opens the face, and that can allow you to hit the fade. What it also does is when you get the hands more in front at impact, that de-lofts the face, which can counteract the face being open from trying to hit a fade, right? So that way I don't lose a ton of distance with the fade. So that's how I try to hit fades. I really try to open up more and get my hands more in front. So that way I have some shaft lean and the face is open. So that way I don't lose as much compression on the ball. That's generally how I like to do it. So, but everyone's feel is a little bit different. I don't feel like I'm changing the path of my club. All I'm feeling is that I'm changing my face angle. To get the ball to curve, the face, there needs to be a difference between your face and your path. Right. So I like to do it. I like to feel like I'm changing the face angle and not so much the path of the club. Now, some people may be more comfortable with doing what you're saying. I think it's a little less common. In my opinion, it's a little bit harder, a little bit more difficult, but other people are different. There's a lot of different ways to do it, right? There might be some people who set up completely square with their stance and they change the path and don't change their hands very much, right? So it's really to each their own as far as that is concerned. All right, so Nick O says, hi, Q. I was wondering if you had a drill for ensuring, and then it cut off. And then it says, hi, Q. I was playing the other day and hitting some poor shots. My playing partner noticed on a par 3 that although my hips and feet were lined up at the target, my shoulders were pointing a long way to the left of the target. I felt my shoulders were lined up at the target. Do you have a drill that would help correct this problem? Yes, that is actually the stable fluid spine. So if your shoulders are open, it's most likely because your spine is pretty vertical, right? So if I have my spine straight up and down, well, I have to reach out to the club to get my hand on the club. I have to reach out to get my hand on the club. And when I reach out, that's going to open my shoulders, right? And if I have my shoulders open, I'm going to tend to swing over the top that sort of thing. So if I have spine, because my trail hand is lower on the club, if I have some spine tilt, now I can have my shoulders squared up, right? And I can have my shoulders squared up and have my trail hand on the club. I don't have to reach out for it. So I'd be working on the stable fluid spine, getting that good tilt, and then feeling like you're reaching more underneath and getting those shoulders nice and square. That's what I would recommend doing. So to get to the stable fluid spine course, click the instruction tab, then click the top speed golf system, then click the stable fluid spine. So Frank C says, I keep hitting iron shots weak and to the right. Any ideas? The reason is most likely because you're cutting across the ball with an open face, right? So you're probably swinging over the top and then the face is open. So that's going to make the ball start off to the right or go off to the right. And it's going to be weak for a couple of reasons. One, when you open the face, it adds loft, right? So that's going to make it a weaker shot. It's like the difference between hitting a 9-iron and a wedge. A wedge is going to be a weaker shot because there's more loft, right? The other reason is because you're cutting across the ball, right? So you're hitting it more with a glancing blow. If you imagine if I was trying to hammer a nail into a piece of wood, I wouldn't come at it from an angle, right? I would go straight down into that piece of wood. I'd try to hit it dead flush, nice and flat with the hammer, dead into it. I would try to go into it just like that. I wouldn't angle it like that and then come in like that. I'm not going to transfer that much energy to it. So you need to get your club most likely more on plane, swinging straight into the ball instead of across the ball relative to the target. And you need to get that face squared up. What I would recommend doing from the sounds of it is you probably need to work through the move course. The move course is all about getting that club on plane sooner and getting that face square sooner. You probably heard of people talking about shallowing the club. Well, that's what we're doing in the move. We're going at the top. We're getting that club nice and shallow, and we're squaring that face earlier. So that's basically the opposite of what you're doing, right? If you're coming over the top and opening the face, that's the opposite of what the move is. That's this. You need to work on getting the club shallowed out and the face square, so that way you can turn into the ball. And that's going to be the move course. So to work through the move course, go to the instruction tab, then click the top speed golf system, and then click the move course and get started on those drills. So Frank C goes on to say, actually, I end up coming out of the shots and they go thin and face even, though I feel I'm lined up in square and then it cuts off. Yeah, so you need to work on the move. If you're standing up out of it, because that's coming down steep, right? If you come down steep initially, you're typically going to stand up out of it to try to get the club somewhat on plane, right? And your face is open and all that stuff. So you need to get the face, the club shallow, so that way you don't have to stand up out of it, and get that face square, so that way you can turn into the ball and get some good compression on it. Stop hitting those weak shots. So that's what I recommend doing. Go to the move. All right, so Daniel B says, what is the difference between in to in and in to out path? Is one of them better? How should the hands move in the follow through to obtain more of in to out path? So basically, when we're talking about an in to out path, that is, basically where the club is working to the right through impact, right? So if you're a right-handed golfer, the path is in to out, right? It's to the right. If you're swinging out to in, right, it's going to be above the plane and then under the plane. If you're swinging in to in, that's basically saying that you're on plane, right? Because you're swinging on an incline, right? So imagine if the ball, let me just go through examples here. So here would be an in to out path where I'm from the inside and then I hit the ball and then my club's going out, right? So I'm inside to outside. The path is to the right. That's going to produce a draw typically. It can produce other ball flights, but it will typically, depending on the face angle, but it will typically produce a draw if you hit it on target. You'll sometimes hit a block. You'll sometimes hit a hook if you're overdoing it, right? You could hit a block slice. There's lots of ball flights that could happen depending on what the face is. But in general, if you're swinging in to out and you're hitting the ball on target, it's going to be a draw, right? Now, if I'm swinging out to in, right, so now the club is out, meaning it's on that side. Let's do this. This might make it easier, even easier to kind of visualize. All right, so my club is outside that alignment stick. I hit the ball, and then it's inside the alignment stick, right? That's going to produce a fade, right? It's going to produce a slice. It's going to produce a pull. It could produce a pull hook. It could produce a lot of ball flights, but the main one that you're going to see is, a fade, right? If you overdo it, you're going to get the bad ones, right? And then you have the in-to-in, which is where I'm coming in from the inside, hit the ball, then the club moves back to the inside. That would be where you're hitting the ball right where it's the club is turning the corner, right? Not that it just depends on what ball flight you're going for. If you're wanting to hit a draw, you want to swing in to out with a closed face. If you want to hit a fade, you want to swing out to in with an open face. If you want to hit it dead straight, you want to swing it in to in with a square face. So not that any of them are better or worse than others. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with. But if you're overdoing an in to out or an out to in swing, you're going to have trouble with hitting it on target at all because your margin for error is so much smaller, right? So if you're getting a lot of curvature on your shots, most likely you're too much in to out or out to in. Either one of those. Most likely out to in. That's the most common that I see. Most of the struggles that I see with people are over the top slice kind of swings, that sort of thing. And then so how should the hands move in the fall through to obtain a more in to out path? Yeah, so I would feel like the hands are more behind you than working out to the right. I feel like the hands are working out to the right, and then the club is behind your hands. That's what I would try to feel like to get the path to be working in to out. If you want to work on hitting a draw, what I'd recommend is going through the move course and or the never slice again course. Both of those courses are all about getting you to swing in to out with a closed face. To get to either one of those courses, click the house icon. That will take you to the homepage. Scroll down the homepage, you'll see a list of all the courses there. All right, so let's keep moving along here. So Ronald F. says, how far forward should the hands be for an iron versus the driver? Well, basically, if you think about it this way, glad we have this out. So it'll be easy to illustrate this. The hands aren't going to be very far. I assume you're talking about an impact. The hands aren't going to be very far forward at impact with a driver by virtue of the ball position, right? So generally, my ball position is going to be straight down from my lead shoulder. Depending on how wide your stance is, it's typically going to be just inside your lead foot, right? So if I come into contact, you see my hands aren't going to be very far in front of the ball, right? So if I'm coming into contact, my hands aren't very far in front of the ball. They are slightly. I don't want to come into contact like that with my driver. That's going to add loft, spin. You're probably going to have trouble hitting it low on the face. You're going to be burning up all your speed early. There's lots of issue with that. So you got to be, here you are with the driver, and then it releases out in front. Now with an iron, right, I'm going to have the ball a little bit forward of the middle of my stance. So you can see this alignment stick is basically in the middle of my stance. The ball position's a little bit forward of that. And then if I go to impact, right, my hands are basically in the same place, right, in front of my trail thigh. But look how much more my hands are forward of the ball because of the ball position, because the ball position is more back. Now, if you were hitting a driver and you put the ball back in your stance like that, your hands would be more forward, right? But that's not the best way to hit your driver because you're going to be hitting down and chopping down into that ball, which you don't want to do with your driver. That's going to make it fly too low with a lot of spin. And you want to have a high launch, low spin with the driver. And that comes from having the ball more forward and hitting more up on it like that. All right. So, and then at address, it's really a personal preference at address. If you're speaking in those terms, personally, I like to let my arms kind of hang straight down. And, if I'm hitting my driver, my hands are pretty much, this would be kind of just letting my arms hang straight down with my driver, right? I'd be like this. So I'd say my hands, my lead arms just kind of hang straight down, my trail arms reaching a little bit. I'm not pulling my hands that way or pushing my hands forward. It's just natural there. And then with an iron, right, my arms are just kind of naturally hanging down. So I'm going to have a little bit of shaft lean address. I don't like to push the handle forward or back because it introduces tension into the arms, and I'm not a big fan of that. That's not to say that you can't hit well. I mean, if you look at Bryson DeChambeau, he has tons of tension in his body, and that's what works best for him, right? He hits the ball really well, has tons of speed doing that. So it's not to say that doesn't work, but I would say myself, I'm more of a free-flowing kind of swing player. I don't like to feel really tense and rigid throughout the swing. I like to feel like there's flow and I'm actually swinging the club. And I think generally that works best for most people from what I've seen. But that's not to say that you may not hit the ball better if you're set up like this, right? Personally, I don't hit the ball better when I do that. And I think it's because I don't swing athletically when I do that. I swing more rigid, and it forces me to kind of up my tempo and things like that. So you just have to find what works best for you as far as that's concerned, where your hands are at address. Because the ball doesn't care. The ball only cares, right, how the club is presented to it at impact. So it doesn't care how you're set up. It only cares how you hit it. So, and you can set up in lots of different ways and hit the ball in lots of different ways. Your address position is not your impact position, right? So, you got to set up in a way. A good setup sets up a good backswing. A good backswing sets up a good downswing. And a good downswing sets up a good impact, right? So you have to set yourself up for success, and you have to find what that is. The most important things that we typically see are having a good grip, having a good spine angle at address, getting your body nice and squared up and everything. Those are the things that we see in the best players. But if you look on tour, you're going to see a lot of different setup, a lot of different things that you got to do. Personally, I gotta set up with my lead foot open. That makes it a lot easier for me to come through impact. If I set up like this, it's hard for me to get into a good impact position because I can't get my body to open up very much because I have a limitation in my hips. So I set up with my foot open so that way I can have my leg at an angle that allows me to push into the ground better, and also it gets my hips to open up a lot better, right? And then I let my foot kind of twist as I'm coming through. So, that's something that I have to do. I kind of had to figure that out, right? So, but that's something personal to me. If you have a flexible hip, that may not be something that you need to do. Or there may be something else you can do that works better for you to get you to be in a better position. So, that's basically what the Tassovig system is. It's all the things that matter the most in the golf swing. If you nail these things, you're going to be in better shape. Everything else is kind of your own swing signature. It's your own, things that you have to kind of figure out or work with an instructor to find what works best for you. It's just tinkering, essentially. So that's why you look at golf swings on tour. They're all doing the Tassovig system, but they all look different, right? Some of them can look similar, but a lot of them have big differences. Dustin Johnson's swing is way different than Colin Morikawa's, and Colin Morikawa's swing is way different than Tiger's, and everyone's swing is there's some swings that are similar, but they all have their differences for sure, even the ones that are similar. All right, so let's get going here. So Marquez says, how do you hit an iron on fairway wood from thick rough? If it's thick rough, you're probably not going to be able to hit a fairway wood. It just doesn't have enough loft on it. Depending on the lie, if the ball's sitting up, you can hit a fairway wood off of it. But if U.S. Open rough and the ball is like down in there, you don't really have access to the back of the ball. You're chopping it out of there. You're not going to hit a fairway wood. It's not going to have loft to get. You're not going to be able to get enough loft on it to get it up out of there. So it really just depends on the lie. If it's a good lie, you can hit a fairway wood, and I really wouldn't change much of anything. It's just the same. It's no different. But I'm guessing, you're not asking about that. You're asking if the ball is like down in the rough. So I would just say, how do you hit a fairway wood at a thick rough? If it's not a good lie, you don't. You take something with some loft and you get it back in the fairway if it's that kind of lie. The way that you would do that is, the reason why it's difficult to hit a ball out of the thick rough is because you don't have clean access to the ball. So how do you get cleaner access to the ball? Well, one would be playing the ball a little bit further back in the stance, right? So this would be where you normally play it, a little bit forward to the middle, right? Well, if I did that, and I took a normal swing, my club is pretty close to the ground at this point in the swing. Then it hits the ball, then the ground. Well, the grass and everything's it's going to eat that club up if I do that. So I want to put it a little bit further back in my stance, so that way I can have a steeper angle of attack on the ball. The other thing is I'm going to really feel like I'm chopping down into the ball. So I want to use plenty of loft to get me out. I want to put the ball a little bit further back in my stance, and I want to really stay down and through the ball and really kind of chop down and through the ball. If you have access to the ball, there isn't much difference that you have to change, right? You may need to feel like the ball is sitting up on a tee, because that might be a different mindset. You can't really hit down and through the ball if it's sitting up on the rough, because you're running the risk of just swinging right underneath the ball, right? So you have to have the visualization that the ball is sitting up on a tee and you're hitting it up off the tee, like almost like a driver, but with an iron, right? If that is the case. But if the ball is down in the rough, you got to play it further back in your stance, play enough loft to get it up out of there, and you got to really kind of chop down into the ball. Really feel like you're hitting down on it a lot, and to pop that ball out. And you got to use speed. You got to use enough speed to get it out there. You're not going to be able to just kind of go like that, because it's going to eat it up. So you got to really get it out of there. Really give it some speed to get the club through the rough. So Thomas says, Q, in the downswing, my lead knee moves outside my ankle, but at impact, I get it pretty solid straight line release position. Is this something I need to be concerned with? No, you're good. Tom A says, if proper swing path is 7 o'clock to 1, is club face also angled toward 1 at contact, or should it be oriented to noon? It would actually be, I think I'm getting what you're saying. So you're saying from 7 o'clock, if I'm standing on top of a clock here, noon would be the target, 6 o'clock would be over here. So I'm swinging it from 7, which would be just inside, to out, right? So I'm swinging into out. If I'm wanting to hit it on target and to center face strike, you actually want to have the face at 12:30, right? Because that's going to get the ball to start to the right a little bit and then curve back toward the target. If the face was actually pointed at 12 o'clock at the target, it would start at the target and then curve left of it, right? You want the ball to be on target, right? So you need it to be a little bit inside your path, but right of the target. So it'd be 12:30. All right, so Sim K says, in the backswing, my back knee moves outside my ankle. Is that okay? No. If you're moving your knee outside, unless you have a narrow stance. If you have a narrow stance and you kind of go like that, that's not that big a deal. But if you have a wide stance and your knee is going like this, your spine angles aren't good, right? Because how would your knee move that way? It would be from your hips kind of moving like that. It'd be difficult to, that's just not really a natural movement to kind of go like that, right? If you're moving your knee outside your hip, it's because you're sliding your hips away, which is not what you want to do. If that's what's going on, what I would do is I would do a drill like this, place a chair outside your hip, like so, and just take some swings where you're not allowing yourself to touch the chair. And that's basically making sure that we have a nice, stable, fluid spine, right? So if I'm moving my knee outside my hips, I'm most likely leaning my spine toward the target at the top or sliding way off the ball or things like that. So if I have a chair here, I'm going to make sure that I'm turning my hips and I have a good spine angle at the top. And now you can see my knee is well inside my ankle there. So that's a good drill to do to keep that inside there. You don't have to use a chair. I just use something that would give you feedback. I don't like alignment sticks for that because I just don't think it gives you the feedback. I've made swings where you're making sure you're avoiding or making contact with a stick and things like that. And to me, you just can't feel it. It's not really rigid enough. Using something like a chair, it's big enough that you're going to feel it, but it's also lightweight enough that it's not going to move you over. Like if you use a wall, right, you hit the wall, it's going to knock you off, right? But if you use a chair, you're going to be able to move the chair out of the way. It's not going to knock you off or anything like that. So that's why I kind of like using chairs or things that you can move a little bit. So it's that good in between. All right, got about time for maybe one more if we got another one. If not, we'll wrap it up there for today. Give you guys another minute to post a question. I do have to go right at 4 o'clock. So if we have a big burst of questions here at the last second, I'm probably only going to be able to answer one of them. So I apologize if that's the case. You just want to make sure in the future, just make sure you get your questions in, before right at the end. If you've got questions, go ahead and post them. Don't wait until the last second, Ronaldo C says, thanks, Q. No problem, Ronaldo. Glad to help. Semke says, I said the knee moves outside the ankle. I mean, it turns outside. My hips really don't slide. Yeah, I mean, if your knee is turning, that's fine. That's completely normal. It's where if we're going if the knee, if you're looking from here, you're drawing a line straight up from the outside of your ankle, and your knee is going like that. That means your hips are sliding, right? But if you're going like that, that's completely fine. That's what you have to do. So Mark Ann says, any advice about taking new swing thoughts to the course while playing around? So here's what I would say about that. I would only use the swing thoughts if they actually help you to play better. That's the only time. If they don't directly help you play better, then I wouldn't worry about them because the goal is to play better, right? So only use the swing thoughts if they help you play better. And I'd only have a max of 3 swing thoughts. So you can have a setup swing thought, you can have a backswing swing thought, and a downswing swing thought. You cannot have 2 backswing swing thoughts or 2 downswing swing thoughts because you can't think about multiple things at the same time. It's like texting and driving, right? You're either going to be texting well and driving bad or driving well and texting bad. You're not going to be doing either one of those very well. So it doesn't do you any good to think about multiple things at once because you're not going to be doing any of them very well. So focus on doing one thing at a time and do that really well, but it has to help you to hit the golf ball better, right? So if it doesn't, then I keep working on it and practice and get better with it. And then eventually it'll start helping you hit the ball better. But I only think about things that directly help you hit the golf ball better. So hopefully that makes sense. So take one more question here. Kevin A says, my pitches shank when my right arm gets parallel with the ground. Any advice? So the first thing I would do, it's hard to say exactly what's going on as far as why you would be shanking it. But the first thing I would do is I'd just try to hit the ball off the toe. Right now, you're trying to hit the ball in the center of the face and you're shanking it, right? So feel like you're hitting the ball off the toe and you'll hit the ball more in the center of the face. If you still shank it, then I'd exaggerate it more. If you actually start hitting the ball on the toe, then just ease off of it a little bit. Some other things that I would look at is, are you standing too close to the ball, right? If you're not, ideally with a pitch, I see a lot of times with these short shots, they just get right on top of the ball. Not saying you're doing that, but if you're kind of like this, you're asking for a shank. So get a little bit of space in there. Now, I'm not saying get out here like this. I'm saying just get a little bit of space in there so you have room to navigate. The other thing that I would look at is the path of your club, right? If you're swinging too much out to in or too much in to out, too much from the inside, that essentially shrinks the face and brings the hosel more into play, right? So I'd look at your swing on video and see what's going on there and then act accordingly. If you're swinging too much from the inside, I'd feel like you're coming down steeper. If you're coming down steep, then I'd feel like you're swinging more from the inside. And the other thing would be how your hips are moving, right? So I'd look at your swing on video from down the line here, and I'd see, okay, when I get to here, where are my hips going? If your hips are going out toward the golf ball, then that's going to take away space for your hands to move through, and you're going to tend to shank it. So I really feel like you're pushing those hips back and creating space for your hands to work through, so that way, you have room and you don't shank it. But first and foremost, try to hit the ball off the toe. That's going to help the most. All right, so we're right at 4. I got to go, guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to y'all next time.